everyone. This is Raphael.
I'm Loryn.
We're the Pacheco siblings, and welcome to the Hypercube podcast, a talk show in which two siblings converse about anything and everything. We are joined today by a very special guest. Scuffle is a voice actress, singer, and producer at TSC Studio. She's well known for a number of lead roles in Minecraft Machinimas, including Rebecca Lethane in the acclaimed Shattered Crown spin-off series, and plays one of the new leads in our upcoming second season of the Deneth Chronicle. Scuffle, welcome to the show.
Hey.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's certainly a pleasure. You've been one that's kind of in the works for a while, or at least on the back burner, because you have come up actually quite a few times during our show in some of the other interview segments.
Oh, really?
Yeah, of course. You know, we did Bryker in the first season, and obviously we talked about you a bit in there. So, because...
Ooh.
Yeah, that was kind of, I mentioned Rebecca Lethane in the intro here. That was kind of like, I feel like one of the roles that really was part of your meteoric rise in the machinima voice acting community.
Yes, I agree. I also have a poster hanging on my wall. Of
That is dope. Commemorate it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've worked with you a few times as well. So, which, you know, has been really awesome. You've been a great collaborator to work with. I think the first thing we worked together on was Trial of the Century, I want to say.
Yeah, I think so too. Or was it a project of TSC
No,
where you were voicing the king?
That is true.
That's
That
true.
is true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
I meant the first project of
that
ours.
one.
But yeah, for sure
We
we did work together earlier as cast members, as co-cast members. I forgot about that. Yeah, so I played King Lamarck in the TSC Studios spinoff with Rebecca Lethane. And yeah, I made a few appearances with that, and that would have been our first time working together. The first time that I played that character was not live recorded. Like, I didn't have live directing, so I just kind of did my lines remotely and then just turned them in. But the second time I did that, I got to do a live recording with you in the call, because we both had a very
so much fun.
intense scene together. And I was so happy about that because, yeah, the energy, that was like the most properly acting thing I've got to do was that session.
Yeah. I mean, it really pushes you when you're playing off of another character or of another actor, I should say, not character, right?
Yeah.
So I just love the energy that gives, because it's like, say it's with high emotion, somebody's angry and you're fighting. It's just like you get louder, the other one gets louder, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah,
that certainly I've found is a great tool for actors to be able to have that energy, because performers and people in general naturally kind of feed off of other people, right? Like, even at a subconscious level, we do respond to other people's emotions, right? It shapes the way that we just present ourselves, is how another person is behaving. And so when you have that human element there, completely improves your performance.
Yeah. And I also think, like a live recording session also has the advantage of, I remember the very first time when I was doing a live recording with other actors, I was so incredibly nervous. You could even hear it in my lines, but nobody else heard it, apparently, because nobody else said anything about it. But I could just, when I'm hearing back those lines, I just keep thinking, oh, I was so nervous back then. But it's really good to have the ability to record on your own. Say if you're not able to make a recording session, then obviously you have no other choice. But if you are able to act with other people, it's not only fun, but it also, I think, really makes the lines stick together more. So
yeah.
I think it's good if you can do both.
For sure. Which was why we generally with our projects try to live record every voice actor, just because we know there's a huge difference in quality and efficiency that you can get there, right? Like, it's easier it's quicker to do that than and do the corrections and notes on the spot than have to go back and forth like over messages if you need any redos. But yeah, so we always try to if we can. But I was really happy on the Deneth Chronicle Season 2 that we got to have you live record with Rose, whose character is like integrally tied to yours. You both share a lot of scenes. And so that was super, super fun. I guess since we're on the topic, should we just dive into that as the kind of the first order of business?
Yeah,
because I did.
Yeah, totally.
I did want to talk about the Deneth Chronicle in this because. As everybody who follows our channel knows, it is in the works, has been in the works for quite some time. Life is crazy, so it's taking a while, but
it's still in the works.
It is in the works. It is in production. I've been shooting it actively for months now. So it's slowly but surely coming together. But because life is so busy, it has to be very slow. But I am still actively working on it. That being said, a majority of the voice lines were recorded like a year ago,
Yeah.
So more than a year ago, I think at this point. So an overwhelming majority of the voice lines are done. There are still a few that are left, some recasting to do. So, but just kind of using this as a brief update to our audience on Deneth Chronicle Season 2, it is hard in production and is on its way. But we could talk to you about it a bit because you are a part of the cast. Part of it was a huge casting call that we did for that. We were casting a lot of characters because there are a lot of new characters in the second season because don't want to spoil too much if anybody hasn't seen the first season, but majority of the cast members are not going to be returning for obvious reasons. And so the second season is full of all sorts of new characters, and we wanted to assemble, especially with our new casting capabilities and being able to offer paid roles and the amount of reach that gets us, we wanted to put together a kind of ensemble voice cast of people that can really do a good job with it. And you were a part of that wave of making that ensemble. But yeah, we kind of had a strong feeling you would be, because even when we were doing the casting call for Samira, which is your character in the second season, she we had like 3 lines that were set for that, as is standard on Casting Call Club. And really, like, the biggest deciding factor for us, I remember, for how we casted that role was how they did the first line where she like does a greeting, because she's a very hyperactive character. And
that's exactly the vibe I got from her as well. And speaking about the casting call, I was just looking back at when I actually handed in the audition, and it's indeed November 2nd, 2021. So
wow.
It's been a while.
2 years.
It's been a while. Oh my goodness.
But I remember I was also looking back in our DMs as well. And I remember you reached out to me. You were like, hey, do you feel like auditioning for any of these roles? And I just saw Samira and I was like, yeah, those audition lines, I want to have a shot at that. So
I want it. Give me.
I want to do it.
And you nailed it. Absolutely.
I
feel like
Thank
the
you.
casting
It was made for you.
generally, it really kind of was. I honestly, I don't remember if I prodded you in that direction, but I really did feel like that was like the one I wanted you to go for. I don't remember if I mentioned that at all, but yeah.
I kind of remember that as well, but I wasn't sure. So that's also why I look back in DMs, because I was like, I didn't want to say anything that, you were like, yeah, you should go for Samira. And I'm just making this up, so.
But you were certainly a good match. And I've heard that from, I know the casting director at Blizzard Studios talked about this once. I heard in an interview where she was talking about how they do such great casting for their games. And she said really the secret is casting people who are well fitted to the roles, right? Because if you look at something like Overwatch, like all of those actors, they are those characters in a way. They're very well matched their personalities, which isn't to say that actors shouldn't, play characters that are against type for them. I think there's value to that as well. But there's something special when there's something that the actor can specifically connect with about the character, that like you get this authenticity that's difficult to get otherwise. But
yeah, I mean, it also sounds more natural, I think.
Yeah.
Because, with Samira, I'd say that the impression I mostly make on people is that I'm, what's the word I'm looking for? I easily connect with people. I'm very not outspoken, but it's more like
kind of outgoing.
I make connections. I like making connections with people. So with Samira, her being so also genuine and just so forthcoming,
so
being like,
extroverted.
this is who I am.
Yeah, she's an open book for sure.
Yeah, I really liked that about her as well. And I was like, she really has that energy that, I really just wanted to try and audition for her. And thankfully, I did land her. So
yeah, well, I will say we kept an open mind, of course, going into the auditions because we were casting a wide net. Lots of people applied, auditioned for the show, which we were very happy about.
It was a lot of auditions.
So many, hundreds, I think. But the over the course of all of the casting calls. But yeah, we did keep an open mind going into that. But ultimately, we did have a number of contenders that were kind of finalists for Samira. But the deciding factor for us was we sat down and we said, okay, but how was the greeting line? And when we listened back on it, yours was the only one that like had that much just sheer energy into that greeting. Yeah. And we're like, that's the character. So
yeah, you can always go less. So if anything, I always tell people who go for auditions where they're like, yeah, does this sound good? I'm just like, just do more. Just do as much as you can. And if it's too much, then they will tell you to do less. So,
but it's easier to scale back than it is to scale up.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's also something that shows how far you can go. So
the more your range.
Yeah, your range.
Like, yeah. So if it does sound really exaggerated, then, a director or somebody else will just say, yeah, just do a little bit less or change it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then it's perfect. So I thought, let's just go all out. And if it's too much, then I'll definitely hear something about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But it turned out exactly what we were looking for. But that is an advice that I often give to voice actors as well, is bigger is usually better when it comes to voice acting. And I mean, that's true of acting in general, because like subtleties and nuances are often, they're often hard to read, but for voice acting, especially where you only have your voice, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to go to a certain bigness in order to get back to what is perceived as normal when it comes to voice acting. Like, even if you think you're going like more like really big for a very mundane line, in the playback, it'll probably just sound normal, right? Just because that's the nature of voice acting.
That's also what I say sometimes with when it feels like I'm exaggerating, that's when I know I'm doing it right. But it is also something, take for example, you're running, so you need to voice like a character panting. It's not just breathing. Because if you just breathe really fast, then you're going to start hyperventilating and get lightheaded in your studio. So you don't want that. But something that I did not realize before is that if you mix a little bit of like a sound with it, instead of just going, it's like, it's like a grunt. It makes it sound more realistic. It's also louder, so it's better to hear. So it's those type of things that you don't think about immediately, but they do make the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, the difference between having like unvoiced versus voiced breathing.
Definitely.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? It's kind of, that's the showmanship of it all, right? Is that it doesn't matter what's natural, because to voiced breathing certainly isn't natural, but it matters how it sounds in the final product, right? And because in the end it is a performance, so what the audience perceives is kind of more important than what seems natural.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about Samira then, because I feel like I would love to dive into this a bit. Obviously, we won't talk in too much detail because don't want to give any story spoilers. We've been the narrative of season 2 has been very under wraps so far to the public eye. But so I guess since this is kind of our first time really talking about these characters in depth in public, why don't you introduce Samira a bit? We've talked a little bit about her personality, like who is Samira, and how did you kind of approach that role? Right.
So the impression that she gave me is that she's very headstrong. She's very confident, protective, and she's also, now I'm saying a lot. Sorry about that. So she has a very strong friendship with her friend as well. It's been a while, so if I'm completely honest, some details have kind of drifted away a little bit. So
That's okay.
Yeah, no worries. Like I said, it was years ago at this point that you did the audition, and I think it must have been within the months after that we did the recordings. But so that was very, very fun though, and I can't wait for everybody to meet that character, because the voice lines are definitely more recent in my head since I've been doing all the editing.
Yeah.
But it's like you definitely nailed that character and the dynamic between her and
that pair of characters.
Yeah, Samira and Livia are a bit of a pair, and I think people are going to fall in love with that dynamic in the same way that you and Rose did as you guys were recording it.
Yes, I do remember just being maybe a couple times I was like, oh, this is so nice.
Yeah, there was definitely, I did see that even within the first couple episodes of you just breaking down, just it was so cute.
Yeah, Rose still loves that experience. She talks about it occasionally.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I still think about it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a ton of fun.
Yeah, that was just fun for everybody involved.
Definitely.
But yeah, the ensemble that we've assembled for season 2 is really awesome. I can say that the entire cast, like doing the mix and the edit for the first couple of episodes was such a joy because it reminded me hearing everybody like in sequence, and all the characters talking to each other, but also the fact that just everybody is so well fitted to their characters. It's honestly really, really impressive. And I'm super proud of the cast that we got together for this. But yeah, so we've
got some good actors on the team.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Strong talent there. And I can't wait for everybody to meet these characters. But yeah, let's dive a little bit further into your sort of creative journey then, because we're a big fan of creative journeys here. And with you, like, how did you kind of get your start in voice acting? I suppose since that's your kind of your primary shtick is like, how did that come about? Because you're still fairly young yet, and you're even younger when you got into voice acting, but that wasn't like that was still something that you kind of came to over time. But like, were you always, I guess, what was your introduction to that? What was your introduction to creativity in general, like in the arts? Like, were you always like a creative person, or is that something that kind of came through voice acting?
Yeah, so I'd say I've always had a knack for more creative things. When I was younger, I used to do ballet and other dancing classes. Wow. Yeah. Also did street dance, modern jazz. I also took singing classes and musical classes also. So I just loved community, being creative, making something good together.
Yeah.
Having a performance with other people and being excited about that, working towards that is something that I also really like. And it really started for me for voice acting because I did already have a sort of history in acting. When I was in high school, I was watching Minecraft roleplay videos made by Afmao. And specifically her original Minecraft Diary series, I think we're all pretty familiar with. I was watching it when she did not have a lot of voice acting in it yet. It was pretty much just her and reading scripts and working with models for the first time. And then she started introducing voice actors to those characters. And I was so impressed. I was like, this is like a movie. What? This is so cool. So then at the time, his username was the Dragon Hat. I think he goes by a different name now. He was playing one of the main characters. And I remember looking at his channel and just thinking, wow, like, this is something that you can do, and you can be a part of something that's so wonderful and great to look at, and just, it was really inspiring. So I did what I think most people do. I go down the YouTube rabbit hole to try and find a start somewhere, to just think like, okay, well, what do I need to start this? And where do I actually go to look for roles and get into this community? Because I thought it was really fun. So that's when I learned that Casting Call Club exists. So if you go to Casting Call Club, there's a lot of different types of projects on there. And I was looking for something very easy to get into, and it's very accessible. So how I started was my recording gear was non-existent. I realized at the time I was using a headset that did not sound good. Even my phone microphone sounded better. So I started using that. Yeah, it's that bad.
That bad, wow.
So I did land a couple of roles on Casting Call Club at some point, voluntary work that I really liked. And I recorded on my phone. Then I used a cable to my PC to move the files over there and start edit them. And then I would send it over to the project owner, and that's how I did my first recording sessions.
Wow. That's inspiring.
Now, yeah. So it was really because of videos I started watching and realizing that, you know, that's something that you can also do. You don't have to have the most amazing gear or setup right away. You can just do something for fun and just get into it, see if you like it. And that's how I stuck, and I kept doing it.
Mm-hmm. That seems to be the direction a lot of this is going, is like back in the day, you would watch, you know, films and be like, oh, I want to do that. And you have to go out and then buy tons of equipment of like physical giant reels of film and then, you know, teach yourself filmmaking, go out in the lot. Now it's like, ooh, I saw this thing on YouTube. Let me use my phone to make something. It's like, it's so easy to get into now. It's great. Everybody can, like, with enough, let's call it persistence. With enough persistence, anybody can just like start with what they have probably at their desk right now.
Yeah. So that's also, I pretty much learned a lot of things myself and just did research. Yeah. So I didn't have a lot of coaching except for my demo reel. Totally check it out, because the makers of it, you know, real good.
Yeah, I did re-listen to your demo reel. It is a very strong demo reel. It's great.
Thank you. I had great coaching as well. It's really just I think that maybe the biggest hurdle for voice acting is I hear from a lot of people that they feel awkward listening back to their own voice. But I think the longer you do it, the more you get used to listening to your own voice, editing your own voice, and usually. Like I said, for example, with like the feeling anxious or hearing that my voice sounded nervous at some point, most people don't even notice that. So it's really just something that you have to kind of work to get over yourself. And then also just ask friends for advice if you do need advice, or do some research and see if you can change some things that you don't like. But yeah, I've enjoyed it very much. I'm 22 now. So yes, I guess I still am pretty young, and I hope to keep going and get better and soak up enough knowledge that I can also share it with other people. So,
well, that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome that you have a passion for sharing that knowledge too, because that's definitely a big part of our mission here. Is we like to talk about empowering creatives is a big part of our mission at P-Cubed in general, right? We want to make art more accessible and the techniques and theories behind it, but as well as just the joy of it, because ultimately that's what drives anything. Like if we could instill that in somebody, then they can do the rest of the learning themselves if they just learn to enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it can feel really intimidating to get into it, because you hear all of these other people sounding so professional, and you listen to demo reels and you're like, well, I don't even have a demo reel yet. What am I supposed to do? Like you see those posts on Twitter, just drop your demo reel and then, that's the audition. And that's also the reason why I got one, because on Twitter you also have a lot of posts, and you're able to look for, it's also, getting contacts, laying contacts with people.
Networking is huge.
But also, it's really important also. And I do find that Twitter does make that easier than, say, Instagram. Because it's also a lot of text posts and things like that.
Right.
But
it's quite easier filtered as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Twitter's great for networking, or at least it was. I don't know how it is these days. But the Instagram I think is a bit better for building an audience, just because it's more like centrally like platform heavy of just like, this is you and your image and your brand, right? Like it's great for building an audience there.
It's like a portfolio.
And so I found it very useful for that as I've been getting more into Instagram these last years. But yeah, Twitter definitely has its strengths for networking. And especially there are a lot of casting calls that just get posted on Twitter too. You can find a lot of rules there. But That being said, yeah. So, oh my goodness, so many thoughts on everything you just said, but I'm just really inspired by your story of starting
That's
out
great.
because that is very true. Like you just went for it, you know? And like Loryn was saying, you don't need much to just go for it these days. A lot of things that used to be
so accessible.
Yeah, a lot of things that used to be very difficult to get into are now a lot easier. And when you start out, it's like it might not be good production wise, you know, but it's a start and you can still do the thing. You can still do the craft, right? And you still like did roles that way. And yeah, it was jank. It was definitely, you've come a long way since then. But it was a start. It was a stepping stone to just get your foot in the door and start practicing it. And that's ultimately, and that is just repetitions from there and you get better. And like you said, a lot of people have that kind of self-consciousness if you go into it of just like, yeah, I'm hearing my own voice. But that, to me at least, because for me, I had to get used to that too, because I started creating online content at a very young age. I was like, I think 13 when I started. And so when I started at first I was just doing edits. So I wouldn't really be on the microphone, but eventually I got into more commentary and let's play stuff. And that was something I had to get used to. That was a huge hurdle for me, was hearing my own voice. And really that, which is kind of crazy for people to imagine now because everyone's always like, oh, you're so well-spoken. But that was really what my boot camp was for becoming well-spoken, was doing online content, is the fact that, because that's a huge training ground for that, is being forced to listen to yourself is actually like, that is your training, right? If you don't like the way you sound, that's an opportunity for you to be critical of yourself and say like, okay, how can I change? What can I change to make it so that I like, you know, I'm more comfortable with the way I sound. What are adjustments that I can make to my speech patterns, to my voice? Like that self-consciousness is like actually a good tool in a way to improve yourself.
It's an indicator of where you can improve.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's also something to do with confidence. I think if you start out and you're not quite sure, you're just sitting in your room, because, you know, that is a very nice part about it, that you can just do it out of the comfort of your own room. Nice. But sometimes people are in a situation where maybe they don't want their parents to hear outside of the room, you know, that they're shouting or
anybody who's living with anybody. Voice acting can get weird really fast.
Very weird.
So sometimes it's also the situation the situation that you're in. But if it has something more to do with confidence of, oh, do I actually sound good? Then I would just say practice a lot. And if you do not feel very confident about it, then you could always talk to somebody or have some, you know, speech lessons to try and get more comfortable in your own skin. But if you do already have a history of acting, then I think people usually feel a bit more comfortable expressing themselves, but sometimes it can be really hard to, especially because we talked about with voice acting, you're working just of sound. Nobody can see what your facial expression looks like while you're recording.
Right.
But that does help a lot. If you are supposed to sound angry, just like make an angry face and then it helps you sound angry. So that's also kind of things that do help.
Yeah, that's the thing. My fiance's an actress, and she told me about she's told me a lot about like the kind of training that actors go through, like for stage and whatnot. Right, like theater is her background. So apparently there's a lot of work that's done to like break those barriers of like self-consciousness. And apparently if you're gonna silly. Because the thing is, like, acting is inherently silly, right? It's an inherently silly activity. There's nothing normal about pretending to be another person and, you know, and then just
or another thing in some cases.
That's true. Or another
it's
creature.
Completely healthy, guys.
Yeah, there's nothing normal about that. It's an inherently silly activity. And so in order to be able to do it, you have to be able to get over the inherent silliness of it, right? And she kind of talked about that in that part of her acting training of just like her instructors doing a lot to just break down those social barriers that keep you from being able to commit to a performance. Because they did a lot that's just work of getting you comfortable in your own skin and comfortable doing like really awkward things with other people, right? And apparently like theater people have like no physical boundaries generally because of that.
No
because
shame.
they're just very comfortable just getting up in someone's face, touching each other in like for like performance reasons, like, you know, being able to like hug or like, you know, make contact in different ways. They just have to, they do a lot of training to get comfortable with all of that because it's not natural. It's not something that most people can just do.
Yeah, sometimes it can be pretty hard to just straight up push yourself to do that if you're not used to it, right? I don't really remember having like any high action things that I had to do. I remember a scene specifically in theater where I had to sneak around and be a thief. But for theater, it's also, you need to, it's very different from the acting you see in movies because things are very exaggerated to make sure that the people in the back see it too. Yeah. So that's something that I do really like about it as well. It's just really over the top sometimes, and you're sneaking around. You have your hands tucked up, and you're on your tippy toes, going like, yeah, "I'm gonna steal something." Yeah, it's also comedic. You know, it's fun to watch, and that's the whole reason of going to a show like that because you want to be entertained, right?
Yeah, for sure. Now, so you do have some history in theater, then? It's
been a while though. I think I was like. Would I have been 10? No, younger.
Oh,
definitely.
Wow. Yeah.
So my memories are a bit faded.
Child
but I
actor.
do remember singing, also having blackout moments. Oh, goodness, that was a nightmare.
Oh, what?
You know, when you're...
What's that?
Right, so you're just... for me specifically, it was while the show was happening, there was like an audience, everything. I forgot my lines. So I was like...
Oh, yeah, just like completely going blank.
Yeah, I went blank and I didn't know what to do anymore. I knew it was a sneak around scene, so I just kind of like made something up to try and because the audience doesn't know that I forgot my line, so I just gotta keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, show must go on.
Definitely. So you just make something up or you reply a little later. It's totally fine. Nobody's gonna notice it as much as you do because you feel very conscious of everything that you do, all of the small movements you make.
Right.
So in the end, I think I just kind of made something up and then went back to the curtains and everything was fine. Nobody noticed.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I've heard lots of crazy stories like that from theater actors in general and my fiance specifically. They apparently that kind of stuff does happen sometimes, but like all sorts of mishaps can happen that you have to work around. And apparently it's literally just improv and just play it like it was supposed to happen. The audience will never know.
Exactly. Yeah. The audience will never know, so you just got to keep going.
Which is a huge advantage that I feel like for acting in general that most people don't take into consideration, which is, again, this is maybe getting a bit more into the theory and like the illusion aspect of it. But yeah, the audience doesn't know what they don't know. And so mistakes like are only mistakes if like the audience notices it, right? And
mistakes are mistakes if you decide it's a mistake.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Bob Ross, happy accidents.
Yes, only happy accidents. No, but really, if you go, oh yeah, sorry, I'm so sorry, I forgot my lines, then yeah, people do notice that, and it breaks up the scene, and it's kind of the trick to keep going. And I do find that improv is sometimes now even a little bit hard for me because you just gotta make up something, right? So that can be pretty difficult.
Yeah. So yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know you'd done any theater at any point, but I guess that's the acting background you were talking about. That kind of probably gave you a leg up in getting into voice acting. Yeah.
Well, that was at that time I didn't even know that it existed, but it's always been a passion of mine where I was like, yeah, I just really like doing it, but maybe in the city where I live there weren't any classes for my age, so I kind of stopped doing it at some point, and I always thought that that was a real bummer because I really liked it. But then I just continued in dancing and also singing. And now I've decided again to take up singing classes. I actually went yesterday.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. And right now I'm just really trying to experiment with different types of songs because I'm used to theater.
Right.
And now
like musical
I just
theater and stuff.
yeah, now I just want to sing songs that I like and see if I can broaden my range as well. And I've also started doing salsa dancing classes, so in couples. Yeah, so I just really like being creative, busy, you know.
So you're kind of a well-rounded performer, actually. Like, you've got like you've almost got the triple threat aspect going. Well, actually, you do. Like, that is
you do.
Singing, acting, dance. That is a triple threat.
Yeah.
So wow.
What don't I do? But yeah, I don't do it for any like competitions or anything dancing. I just like doing it for myself and just having a good time. And for this specifically, these classes that I'm following right now, it's also a sense of community because you're going there and there's a lot of people dancing also. With the dancing I'm doing right now, unfortunately, there's more, we call it followers than leaders. So you have the male who leads the dancing and then the female who follows. You could also be a guy that follows or a girl that leads. Like, it's completely open to whatever you want it to be. But there's more couples, and then there's evenings where you go out dancing together and you just have a good time. So
yeah,
I really like that.
That's really awesome. Yeah, I've heard there is a lot of community to find in dance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I want to talk about that a bit more then, because I did want to talk about your singing, because singing is a whole aspect of your craft that I feel like most people don't talk about. Like, I think you've got your own kind of reputation as a voice actor, especially in machinima communities and in the Machinima Hub community. And like I said, through like TSC Studio and like your work that you've done with them, that kind of shot you up through like the ranks. I feel like you started getting a lot of roles after you did the whole trilogy as Rebecca Lethane, and which that was really awesome to get to see you stick with a character and develop her over that long a period of time. It was super amazing. Still definitely one of my favorite roles that you've done, but. So like people know you a lot as a voice actor, it seems, but I feel like there's not enough conversation about the singing end, because you recently on a recent TSC Studio project, you sang an original song for the credit sequence. Right. I can't remember the name of it. Maybe you know it, but
The Remnants of Goodwill.
Yeah, there you go. And it's really good. It has a music video for people who want to look it up. And that was for me was the most shocking thing about that whole machinima was how good that closing song actually was. Like, I was impressed. But that was really my first time, like the orchestration, the composition of it and everything. I was like, this is actually a good song. And the lyrics, all that. And so that was actually my first exposure to you singing, though. I knew that you did sing, right? I knew that you were a singer, but I had never actually like heard your singing voice before that, I don't think. So yeah, talk about that a little bit. What was that like recording that song, and what's it like in general getting back into singing? It sounds like you've been doing a lot lately. What are your kind of ambitions as a singer, if anything at all, or if is that just for fun? Like, what's singing like for you?
Okay. Yeah, so mostly I do it for fun. So I do have it on my profile as well that I do sing. And I've had people reach out to me sometimes being like, hey, you want to sing for my project? But it is something that is kind of a personal hurdle for me still, because I do feel like my voice does sound good, but it was really the song The Remnants of Goodwill that made me feel more confident in my singing as well. I was recording a couple times, and I wasn't happy with how it was sounding. I was a little bit insecure about it, and I had a lot of back and forth with Brager about it. And in the end, we made something that I'm really proud of, and I show to everybody.
It is. Yeah, it is. Yeah. We'll link it in the show notes. It is really genuinely good. I definitely highly recommend checking it out. I'll definitely be linked in the notes.
I also have a lyrics version on my own channel. So
Ooh. I think I saw that when I was looking at your YouTube channel. There's like 7 videos on your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
There's not a lot, but that's one of them.
You can tell. You can tell I'm not a creator, but I'm somebody that, joins a project. But I just post occasionally on there when I do feel like posting something. But I'm not very good at mixing and editing myself. So we had a great team to work on it. And I do really want to sing for a project again.
Would you consider singing for our project?
Definitely.
Well, because you do.
That is true. We still have singing parts that we need you to record for Samira. So that might follow up at some point.
That's really good.
Yeah. So, okay.
I would totally feel up to sing for you guys. Yep.
Awesome. But yeah, so that's really cool. So I guess as far as singing, are you like mostly, I guess, interested in singing other people's works, or do you have any like songwriting ideas of your own that you would love to get to, or is that kind of not necessarily on your mind?
Yeah, so I mean, talking about singing, I don't write my own original songs, but usually when I do sing, there was this one time that was an evening that I also really enjoyed. One of my friends is also following singing classes, and he was like, yeah, so we have this project going on right now, and we need to sing in duets. Would you maybe want to sing with me that evening? And I was like, yeah, totally. That sounds like fun. Like it's kind of a mixed experience for me. Sometimes I feel kind of like self-conscious about it, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, I just gotta do it. I just gotta push it and see how it goes. So we prepared songs. We went to his teacher, done our own spin on it, because my singing range, I guess I could go pretty high, but I like singing a bit lower sometimes as well.
Well, for the musically inclined people at home, what is your range technically?
Oh yeah, sorry, I don't know any technical terms really.
Gotcha. So you don't actually know what your range is considered.
I don't know what my official range is, but
it goes low to high.
Yeah, it just goes mid to high, I guess. I don't know.
You don't know if you're like well, I guess I don't know all the different terms either, but
yeah, I would
like
guess that I'm on the lower range. I think I'm on the lower range because also with my singing classes yesterday, I was singing a song that was originally sung by a man.
Oh, yeah, which men and women have different vocal ranges too. I know that.
Yeah,
much,
definitely. Because he had a pretty high range. So that's really fun because I got to like really use like, that's what I call my chest voice, just really pushing and you know, going loud, and it's also really teaching me how to go with volume, and I'm sometimes more used to using what do you call it in English? It's like a vocal vibrato, right?
Oh, vibrato. Yes, vibrato. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Because it's kind of theater-ish in a way, I guess, with vibrato. That sometimes I mix vibrato into my singing, and I'm like, yeah, that's not how the song goes. So I also need to teach myself again how to sing in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting. I hear a lot of conversation about that among singers. I feel like vibrato is almost like a point of contention with some people, where like, yes, it could like create very cool and interesting sounds, but there's also like, there's a lot of people who argue for the merit of like just hitting the note, right, and just having a clean note. It's like, yeah, what are your opinions on that? It sounds like almost, because I know some people can tend to use vibrato as a crutch, from what I understand, right, where it's like to hide like, you know, other shortcomings of their singing technique. But it sounds like for you, it sounds like it is like a habit of yours that sometimes you try to get away from.
Yeah, because with the song I was singing yesterday, it was with a certain line, I just, for some reason, I had in my head that it had to be sung with vibrato. So I was really trying to retrace my steps and be like, okay, yeah, let's try it without it. We did some exercises, then we tried the song again, and it worked. So I think the best way to look at a song is don't use vibrato in every single sentence unless it's just meant to be that way. The song was written that way. But I think it's the best if you have a balance of sometimes you add it, sometimes you leave it, because it makes it a lot more interesting to sound or to listen to. And it makes a very interesting sound if you use it here and there instead of using it constantly or not using it at all, because sometimes it gets a little bit boring if you don't use it, but it's not a necessity.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I think that just goes for any technique in general, is having a good variety as opposed to just doing the one thing over and over again. Like, I love my metal music that has screaming vocals in it, but I can't listen to that for an entire album.
You just kind of sometimes you feel like listening to heavy metal, and sometimes you feel like listening to something soft and very nice. And
you got to have a little bit of variety in there.
Yeah. What are your kind of musical tastes? What kind of music do you listen to personally?
Well, I think alternative is something that I really like. So the song I was singing yesterday was Leave Me Alone by I Don't Know How, But They Found Me.
Yes, I love that
really
band. I love that band.
Artist name, I know. But it is a really nice song because I like singers who have a unique sound to them. I wish I could sing like that. He has a unique sound to them. I also really like listening to Måneskin.
Oh my gosh, I just recently found Måneskin through Spotify Radio. It's all great bands. Like these are, I'm loving your music taste so far.
Oh my goodness, I never heard of any of these.
Okay, well, do you know Panic at the Disco?
I've heard of that.
Okay, so I also like those.
If you didn't know Panic at the Disco,
yeah, there'd be something wrong with me.
Yeah.
I've been living under a rock.
You grew up in the early 2000s. You know who Panic at the Disco is.
This is true. This is true.
But I also just really like the old school pop. Katy Perry. I also listen to Taylor Swift, Bruno Mars. So yeah, just a lot of artists I really like, and I just switch them all. Like I throw them all together in a playlist, and then I just I just leave it, and whichever song pops up, I just like them. So I like a lot of different styles: rock, pop, alternative.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've got a pretty wide taste. Yeah. I feel like Loryn between us is definitely like the wider musical tastes. Like Loryn lists, as you can tell by the fact that he knows all the artists he mentioned, Loryn listens to a little bit of literally everything.
Literally everything. I have a favorite band in every genre, even the ones you've never heard of.
It's also funny because sometimes when people hear a song on the radio and they missed the title, they ask me, "Hey Sophie, what was that song called again?"
Yeah.
Because
can you usually get
I'm
it?
kind of the song encyclopedia, you know, like people ask me like, hey, what was that one song called again? That goes like, nah, and they ask me, and then I somehow know it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I just listen to the songs I like on repeat, so I really don't know every song that comes out, but I also really liked Call Me By Your Name.
Oh yeah, Lil Nas X.
Really like that one. Just a wide range of taste.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah.
Lil Nas X is a rapper, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh.
Raph.
I've heard of them, I think.
They went viral. They did the whole not Country Road, Old Town Road.
Yeah.
Which I only recently discovered is actually a really old song, and I guess they did a cover of it.
No, Country Road is an old song. Old Town Road is an original.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
I only found that out because Haley, my fiance, recently showed me the Studio Ghibli film Whisper of the Heart, which was a phenomenal film, but features that song very prominently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, that song existed back then? I'm just like, Country Road.
No, that's Country Road, yeah.
Yeah.
Country Road, Take Me Home?
Yeah, Take Me Home, yeah.
Yeah.
So no, Old Town Road is a totally different thing.
Okay.
Down Old Town Road, I'm gonna ride till I can't no more.
Yeah, because I heard that.
It was a comedy rap.
Yeah, I guess I must have heard Country Road more recently because of something, and then I heard it in that movie, and I was like, wait, that song existed back then?
Yeah.
I don't want to go on about Studio Ghibli for too long because it's off topic, but I just want to say that I love it so much.
You love Studio Ghibli?
Studio Ghibli's so good.
I've only been getting into Ghibli more recently. So yeah, like my fiance is a big fan of just Japanese stuff, so I've been definitely seeing a lot more.
Highly recommend. I also really liked watching Ponyo. It was so cute. Yeah. Spirited Away. I like that one as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm kind of more recent to that, and I guess Miyazaki's having his allegedly last film coming up, so that'll be very, very interesting. But yeah, so I guess we're approaching our time here. But I guess before we wind down, I wanted to talk a little bit about, because you've come a long way as an actress and as a voice actress. What are, I guess, some of the ways that you've been kind of keeping up and kind of improving yourself? Because you started out kind of jank, but you've done a lot to kind of learn your craft and get your gear. It's just like, what kind of training have you done? I guess, more recently since then, and in order to improve yourself.
So I did also, for anybody who doesn't know, I'm Dutch. I'm not from America. I recently met a group of also Dutch voice actors, and we joined a Discord group together.
Oh,
and we went to and we went to a workshop for voice acting, and that was so much fun. But yeah, we also got to do some live action dubbing, some for cartoons, then also some animation. So, and to hear your own sound coming back to you through like a professional microphone and stuff like that, it was really good. But we also had the chance to ask a lot of questions, and that was more recently. But usually when I want more advice or I want to talk to somebody about it because I'm excited. I also have talked to Dakota a while back.
Previous guest on the show.
When I got to know him. I talked to him and I was like, yeah, so could you tell me a little bit more, or can we call? And then at some point we did join a call together. He also introduced me to the person who made my demo reel.
Oh.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so he also told me about like lessons, about books, things like that. And also there's other people that I have come into contact with through TSC Studio as well. Some actors who, there's Kit Garrigan, right. Who she's mostly doing paid projects now, but I also had the chance to chat with her a little bit. So I think you learn a lot from other actors as well, of what they have already learned, things to look out for. So I didn't even know that Dutch workshop was there until they told me. So I was like, hey, that's good to know.
Yeah. That's really awesome. Yeah, to make those local connections.
And we actually met through Casting Call Club.
Oh, wow.
And they just asked me, hey, you want to join the group and just hang around a little bit? And now we're doing like dubs of Attack on Titan, also
nice.
other projects, but it's like short scenes and we keep it to ourselves. We're not posting it online just because it's mostly meant for practice,
right?
But you know, it's really fun to do, and it's also in Dutch, and that's also something that I really like, because when I started out with voice acting, I was going for solely English, and that wasn't really intentional. It was more so that I thought, oh, well, hey, if I look at, there's not that many Dutch projects, but there's a lot of English ones, then, you know, I might go the English route first and then see if I can do something else with Dutch later on. And now, finally, I have started doing stuff in Dutch, which I really like.
Yeah, that's good, because especially for like your local languages. In the international scene, there's probably not going to be a lot of like stuff for that. But if you can get your name known in like, you know, your small little niche group of voice actresses who can speak Dutch, that's probably going to take you pretty far in your local area getting jobs.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, that's a whole other subject that we don't have time to get into, but that I would love to talk more about is just being bilingual and what that's like as from an actor's perspective. And that was definitely a kind of background curiosity of mine, is just like, if there are opportunities for you in your native tongue, and what that's like kind of going back and forth as a performer now. Like that's, oh my goodness, I have so many questions about that, but we definitely don't have time to get into that, but at least we got to touch on it.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, that's amazing. All right, so I suppose we need to start winding this down, but thank you very much for joining us. In closing, like, where can the people find you, and what are you working on currently? What's going on for you?
Right, so currently working on really a lot of different projects, mostly for fun, but also some YouTube shorts as well. And also, I also wanted to say I have really enjoyed the time on the show, and I did not realize that so much time had already passed.
It's already almost time. Yeah, it goes by so fast.
Yeah, and it's really nice to talk to you guys. So you just completely forget about how much time you're spending talking to people. But yeah, working on different projects. You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, also on YouTube under the tag Scuffle2423. And yeah,
for sure. We'll definitely link you in the show notes as well, so you could find some of those links she was just talking about.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So yeah, Scuffle, Sophie, been an absolute pleasure having you. Always a ton of fun to talk to you and work with you, and we have really enjoyed your work and your contributions to our own work over the years.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you're always welcome on this show. And yeah, again, everybody feel free to check those out. Check out some of her work if you're not already familiar with it. Definitely check out that song that she did recently for TSC Studio. If anything, I could recommend. That's a great one for one specific thing. That wouldn't take too much of your time. But yeah, again, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Really enjoy your insights and getting to know your personal stories and background a little bit more. It's really, again, inspiring to me hearing how your humble origins were and starting out with just such jank and going all the way up to where you are now. I've kind of watched your career progress a bit in real time, and it's really awesome to see how far you've come and also just how much amazing work you've been doing. But I think it can be an inspiration to all of us, and it's a reminder of a point that we often make on this show, which is that these things, like in the art world, are accessible now. Like they're easy to get into, and you don't have to worry about doing it perfectly when you start out. It's about starting your journey and then improving as you go, because nobody's going to be, an absolute prodigy who does everything right the first time. But that's where learning comes in.
It's also super important to just have fun as well. So, if you get to know a lot of people and you get to talk to a lot of people that you usually wouldn't talk to about something that you are really passionate about and really like, then it's definitely worth trying. And if you have any questions, just don't hesitate to ask other people, because you're only trying to improve, get better,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no person's an island, and you'll be surprised how willing a lot of artists are to share their knowledge, because a lot of the artist elitist is actually few and far between. Most people want to help other people get better at their art, like that's a cliche that I feel like is not to say that it doesn't exist, but it's definitely not a majority of artists, right? I think a lot of people are actually pretty quick to share their knowledge if you start talking to them.
Yeah, it's a good community. All in all, there's always going to be people who maybe, they don't have the time, or they prefer to keep things to themselves, but that's all, that if that's what they want to do, then you also got to respect that. But I think a lot of people really do want to help get other people into the circuit as well, and just have fun with them or on their own, and just do what you're passionate about.
Yeah, and I think that's incredibly important, remembering the passion and the joy of it. And it's just really glad to see that you've maintained that for yourself. It definitely seems like you never stop having fun with it, and I think that's ultimately the most important thing.
Yes, I think so too.
So thank you again very much, Sophie, for coming onto the show.
And thank you very much.
Yes, anytime. Like I said, anytime, you're welcome. We always love having you. But thank you all very much for listening. This has been the Hypercube podcast. This show is edited by Loryn Pacheco, mixed by Raphael Pacheco, with original theme music by Mono Memory. Until next time, we'll see you all later. God bless.
Adios.
Woo!